Welcome to Epithets, exploring the sacred titles of Hekate.
We are so excited to be back. This is your co-host, Isaac Vars, with your other co-host, Robin Silverman.
Hello.
And we're here today to talk about the three recurring names of Hekate in PGM. Actually, one specific one. They're usually grouped as three. Aktiophis, or Reshkegal, Nabat Soaleth. And today we're going to just cover Aktiophis because we have a bunch of really cool things, and I think that Robin may have brought up an interesting point that not a lot of people have considered when figuring out what Aktiophis means. And so I'm very excited about this. Normally, we start off our episode with Robin giving us a little bit of a Greek lesson in what an epithet means, but this one's a little trickier. Uh, I don't want to jump right into the big reveal as to what we think it means, because it's also a theory, because people don't necessarily know. Do you want me to kind of go over the other theories that aren't your theory, maybe?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think first I want to say we talk about these, and I'm not sure if this term comes from Jason Miller directly or if it's earlier than him, but I think a lot of people talk about these three names as the secret names of Hecate. And what makes them secret is not that people don't know them, because of course they're right out there published for everyone to see, but I think what makes them secret is they're so obscure. We don't really know what they
Hmm.
mean. So when we call them the secret names of Hecate, we're talking about the mystery of what they mean and why they're applied to Hecate, because they are really obscure as far as meaning goes. So it invites a lot of speculation, which is some of what we'll be doing tonight. So I'll let you go off on that.
Fantastic. Yes, because I mean, a Reshkigal is pretty easy. That's not that tricky. But Aktiophis and about the Soleth are a little trickier. So the two the two theories that I've seen outside of what Robin's kind of brought to light, brought to light, um, is so in the PGM specifically, it is referred to in the notes as a name for a lunar goddess. Ozzy Hofner, who is I believe he's an author and did research on the PGM, German guy. He suggests that this was an epithet of Selene, or just a goddess name in its own right, which, looking at a few of the PGM entries, I can see why he would think that or theorize that. Another interesting theory that I saw on the great World Wide Web was relating it to a an epithet of Pan, Actios, and that looks like it's related to riverbanks and ocean. Pan Actios talks about Pan of the coast, and that you can read more about that in Cults of Pan in ancient Greece by, I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. It's French, and well, I'm not. Philippe Philippe or Philippe Bargode. And it looks like he got that from Theocritus. And those are the general the general theories that you'll find across the internet when you dig into it. But Robin made a fun connection, and I've been going down a little bit of a rabbit hole running with this connection, and it gets even cooler and trippier. So, Robin, I'm gonna let you talk.
Sure. So the word Aktiophis, it is, a mystery what it actually means, but looking at, the Greek and having some understanding of Greek, there's some pieces you can pull out. The last part, the ophis, it means serpent in Greek. And since it's connected with Hecate, it kind of seems like a no-brainer that the ophis in this context is serpent. The acti part is a little more obscure, but there is a Greek word that I think applies, which is actis, which is a word for a beam of light. Sometimes a sunbeam. I think it can also apply to a moonbeam. Just the idea of a ray of light shooting from one point to another is kind of how that word is used. It's a ray. But there's another bit, which I found really interesting. This is the part that I haven't seen anybody else talk about, is there's actually a mythological figure named Actis, who's the son of Helios. The son of Helios, the founder of the city of Heliopolis in Egypt, and the one who taught astrology to the Egyptians, according to Diodorus Siculus. So there's this figure, Aktios, who I imagine as a son of Helios is named after the idea of the sunbeam, who is connected with, revealing this ancient wisdom, and who's also connected with Egypt and with sort of this Greco-Roman Egypt, which is kind of the source for many of these PGM texts. The thing about the PGM that I want to bring up, I think it's easy to think of the PGM as a book because we have it all nicely bound in a book by, Hans-Dieter Betz. But it's really a collection of texts from a region over the course of about 300 years. And it's a collection, based on a lot of similarities, but these are not the product of a single author. They're not the product of a single mind. They're not even necessarily meant to be a collection. They were collected in really modern times, starting from, I think, like there's some of these texts were uncovered in the 1700s, but they were made into a collection in the 20th century. So what we have here is kind of a hodgepodge in a way. So when we talk about something being from the PGM, we're not really talking about, we're talking about that it exists in this source. So when we see the name Aktiophis repeated in different places, it's not necessarily coming from the same person or even someone who has the same understanding of the name, perhaps, as how somebody else used it. But the idea that there's this founding figure in Heliopolis in Egypt, which is where a lot of these texts were found, and feels like it's related, especially with the idea that this is a person who's known for teaching the occult knowledge, really, of astrology. So this connection of like this serpent, sunbeam, revealing of astrological knowledge, all feels really connected to me in what Aktiophis is all about.
Yeah. I think that I'm so excited about like digging into this because it is such a cool thing. Actis, from what we know about Actis, he was the third son of Helios with Rhodos, who was a daughter of Poseidon, which also is a really cool Hecatean thing because we're relating her both the heavens and the ocean there via Actis. And Actis, we don't know too much about him. We do know that he, along with his brothers Triopas, Makar, and Candylus, were jealous of their brother Tanages. So the four brothers were jealous of the fifth brother, who was really skilled at science and did the only logical thing apparently brothers do in myth, which is off their brother, very Cain and Abel-esque. They realized that that was pretty awful, and they all spread to four corners of the world. As Robin had mentioned, Actis runs to Egypt, where he finds Heliopolis, and according to the Greeks, teaches astrology, which is mighty Greek-centric of them. The Egyptians are like, hey, we figured that out on our own. What are you talking about? But it shows up. It was I don't know, that really blew my mind, that story, and the way that Robin had connected both Actis and then of course the obvious thing that wasn't so obvious to me, not being somebody who or having a cursory understanding of ancient Greek, Actis and Ophius, the serpent. So I just love that so much, this serpent of sunlight.
Yeah.
One of the PGM spells that really supports that in my mind was PGM for 2441 to 2621. It's a spell of attraction. Of course, there's so many love spells here. And this is one where I can see where Hafner got the idea that Aktiophis would be a name for Selene, because he, in this spell specifically, Aktiophis is called a goddess, as in it's not a, she is referred to as the goddess Aktiophis. And also, she's heavily related to Selene. But it starts off with the story of telling how this spell came about. And Robin, what would, can you pronounce the name? I kind of butchered it last time we were talking about it. Was it Hippocrates,
Oh yeah, though
the
I think
prophet
actually
of
that was connected to an earlier spell in the book. I mean earlier where
Oh, did
where we
I might have missed.
That's okay. But there
Oh
is a
gosh.
spell.
Now I'm gonna have to look.
There is a spell, I think it's like right next
Now
to
I'm
it
gonna have to look to
in
see what it
Vets
is.
that talks about a sorcerer named
Okay.
Hecate who is from Heliopolis. And the idea of like teachers from Heliopolis being like the source of some of these spells. I think a lot of them were found in
And that
Thebes, but there's this idea that like there's wizards in Heliopolis, right? And yeah, in one of the spells, it's let me see. I actually think I have a note about it because I thought that was interesting too. Let me see if I can find the reference.
I'm running right to this spot and looking. Uh nope, nope. Yeah, that was this was the it is the spell I was thinking it is. Uh Hippocrates. It is in
There it
the
is, Socrates. I found him.
spell of
Yes.
attraction. Yep. It is in the spell of attraction I was talking about. When it mentions the burnt offering, it says Hippocrates, the prophet of Heliopolis, revealed it to the Emperor Hadrian, revealing the power of his own divine magic. And then it
Yes.
talks a little bit about the history some more, which is cool because you don't, a lot of these spells is just, you just get a spell. You don't get any kind of story along with it. So I really like this. And then he goes into this crazy long incense recipe that can't smell that good.
It includes a
Looking
dead
through
mouse,
half
doesn't
of
it?
it. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I don't,
it's
it's like, oh, I don't,
awful.
yeah, the mouse, moon beetles, uh, a crab, uh, dappled goat fat, and dog crap, two eggs of an ibis, and then storax myrrh, crocus, Italian galangal, and frankincense, and then a single onion. Oh, that can't smell good at all. Oh, but I mean, if this is what you, if this is what you need for the spell, that's what you need for the spell, I guess. Uh, but it then goes into the words of it. Let all the darkness of clouds be dispersed from me, and let the goddess Aktiophis shine for me, and let her hear my holy voice. And you're supposed to be saying this, I believe, at moonrise. So this
Moonrise, yeah.
is very lunar. Oh gosh, and I'm looking through it. I'm sure that it mentions Aktiophis again as Aktiophis Reshkegal and about to Soalef Vorforba Satrap, and then I'm not going to try to get that one. And then Flesh Eater. Ooh, that's some crazy stuff right there. Anyway, so I was really excited about seeing Aktiophis related to somebody from Heliopolis with your theory because
Yeah.
that connection was like was super awesome. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that I'm really all about that. The idea of Aktiophis meaning serpent of sunlight or just light because if we're
Yeah,
looking
the
at
idea of the beam. I think
moonbeams, yeah.
yeah, like I feel like the spell too, I think this spell gives us the most context we have for Actiophis, really, because the name is usually just
Mm,
used kind of on its own as part of this three-name formula. But in here, where she's directly called on as a goddess, and this line, "Let all the darkness of clouds be dispersed from me, and let the goddess Actiophis shine for me." So that right there is
mhm,
this idea of shining, right? And when you think about a sunbeam, right? When you see a sunbeam, it's when the sun is covered. So, and same with the moonbeam, right? If you see beams coming out, it's because the source of light is obscured. So this idea of the light coming from behind the clouds, that to me is the feeling of Actiophis, is this movement of light from an obscured place, which also kind of reminds me, we haven't talked about this epithet yet. I think we're going to do an episode eventually on it. But the epithet of Crocopeplos that Sarah Mastros talks about as being the cloud over the moon, you know how it turns yellow, so it's this yellow veil over the moon. She talks about that. So this really reminds me of that, the idea of the obscured light and then the beams coming from behind. So connecting us to this source of light that we can't see. To me, that to me feels like, and like I said at the very beginning of this episode, we're going to be speculating a lot, and this is speculative, and this is my personal understanding. But my personal understanding of Aktiophis is that she is this transmission from behind the veil, right? The light shining clouds. And serpents are, they're messengers, right? They're messengers or guardians, really. So I tend to think in this context of the serpent of Aktiophis being like this messenger from the obscured light.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And while it does not mention that specific one, it talks about the three names. It doesn't mention Hekate by name. PGM 42708 to 84 does mention her by name, as well as mentioning Aktiophis. It also mentions Kore and Artemis, but Hekate gets the most attention, I feel like, in that love spell. Kind of, it's interesting. The few of the other spells invoke Helios, which is interesting, especially concerning what we're talking about. I mean, I know that Hecate and Helios have historical connection, but in a lot of these spells, they mention Helios as well. I'm looking through a lot of these that I got. Yeah, all but one was a love spell.
Yeah, a
So
lot of, yeah, they seem to be
it
spells
is
of that.
very,
And the one
but
you just referenced, the 2708 has a really great prayer. I love the prayer with that one.
27, right? I'm going through. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, that was really lovely. Let me. It's like I'm looking up. I don't have the book in front of me in the physical copy. I do have it in an online version, which is why it's taking. And this one also has another crazy incense recipe that involves the fat of a dappled virgin goat. Uh,
I feel like the PGM is
giant
a great source for
Hecate.
terrible incense recipes. You want the worst incense recipes,
Clearly,
go to the PGM.
don't do it. Just don't do it. Come giant Hecate, Diona's guard, O Persia, Babel, Frone, dart shooter, unconquered, Lydian, the one untamed. Yeah, it is it is a pretty crazy one. Uh, it keeps on going back to her, and I think it ends with yeah. But you,
Yeah.
O Hecate, with many names, O virgin Kore, goddess, come I ask, O garden shelter of the threshing floor, Persephone, O triple-headed goddess, who walks on fire, a cow-eyed. Oh, boy, I'm not going to try that one. Then some power names, then Aktiophis, which is another version that we see often. Aktiophis versus Aktiophis. Aktiophis Reshkegal about to Soleth. Do you have any insight on the difference between Ophis versus Ophi when it comes to
Not
Greek, or is that just
particularly.
kind
I
of
think it's more of variation in what the spell writers are doing.
yeah?
I think also with these secret names and with these words, like, the ones you didn't try to read,
Hmm.
a lot of them, it seems like they're copying, they're copying from
Yeah,
somewhere else, and they don't know what they mean either. They just know these are the special magic words that you're supposed to use. So we see a lot of variations in spelling and a lot of variations in, how they're used. But I get the
yeah.
feeling the people who are writing this down don't necessarily know what the words mean either.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a few times when there's plenty of places in the PGM where you're reading through it and you're like, oh, this author, there's definitely a mean game of telephone happening here
Yes.
to get to this version of the spell. it shows up in a lot of the other in the way that things are syncretized as well. Kind of how they're mixing things together or getting really creative with who they're calling on. I think that shows through. Like, gosh, what was it? The one non-love spell, PDM 14, 675 to 94. It's a spell for evil sleep. And they call upon Aktiophis Reshkel and about to Soleth, but also they call upon Typhon Seth. So it's, or PGM, yeah. I don't think I'm messing up my Roman letters. XIV. But that's the PDM session, not section, not the PGM.
Yeah.
The demotic area.
Which means they're not in Greek.
Right. So if that helps, you find it.
Oh, what was
I
the
can
number?
also try to PDM XIV. I can also
which spell?
get you a page
what's
number.
the line number? The line number?
I'm going to find it right. I'm typing it in.
Okay.
Because I'm referencing both my notes and oh, I'm referencing both my notes and the 675. Sorry.
75, there we
That's
go.
the question that you asked, and I just got lost in trying to answer
I
it.
can understand. Yes, the evil sleep spell, yes. With the donkey's head.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
That would do it right there, right? Put a donkey's
Yeah.
head between your feet. I'm gonna have a bad night's sleep if I have a donkey's head between my feet.
I'm definitely not sleeping well with that for sure.
But yeah.
There we are. I know we're trying to both find it together. Uh,
Yeah, this actually, I think this is
it's
really interesting. This is a good one to bring up.
I didn't read that bit, or I didn't remember that. If you wish to make him die, not this is not a nice person kind of spell, but it does call upon Typhon Seth, as I had mentioned. I call upon you, Typhon Seth. I command your prophetic powers because I call upon your authoritative name, for which you cannot refuse to listen. Io erbeth, io parkebeth. And then it goes off a bit until it goes Io soro, io nabautasoleth, actiophai, ereshkegal, nabautasoleth. No, they wanted the nabautasoleth twice. And they go off about, offing this person. But and you're supposed to say this before the sun. Interesting.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's a very I feel like they did a little bit of a plug and play thing there. They're just like, I don't know, this sounds good. Let's put in some powerful names, and I've seen this paired before, so let's do the Aktiophis or Actiophi in the situation. Areshkagal about to Soleth.
Yeah, the thing that
But
I
yeah.
was commenting on as being that I think is important about this one is this: I call upon your authoritative name to which you cannot refuse to listen. The idea that this is a compelling formula.
Mhm.
And we talk about it as the secret name of Hekate. And while I don't really like to think of compelling Hekate, I don't feel like that's what we're doing. But I do feel like using this formula, these three secret names, gets her attention. If you are working with Hekate, and maybe this is jumping ahead to how to actually use this, but if you're working with Hekate, this
Hmm.
formula, the three secret names, seems to be really powerful for connecting with her and for drawing her attention. And if you're working with Hekate on a regular basis, using these names on a regular basis will get you noticed because these are, like I
Yeah.
said, they're compelling.
And they're powerful. Just playing around with it,
Yeah.
they got some weight. They got
Yeah.
some weight for sure. But I mean, gosh, we've covered a lot of the stuff connected to it. I'm looking through my other notes, just other PGM love spells that involve Helios, and there's one that was interesting. We were talking about this, the PGM for 2891 to 2942. The love
Yeah.
spell
Yeah.
that was for the star
Yes.
of, using the star of Aphrodite. That really
Yes.
didn't seem to be very Hecatean, short of mentioning Aktiophis. And you were talking a little bit about the name's connection to stars. What was
Yeah.
that stellar connection you had mentioned?
With Actus as the teacher of astrology. Um,
No, you had mentioned
different one.
uh I'm sorry, man, maybe this was I don't know if this was actually on the episode or before we even started.
Maybe just when we're
Uh
talking.
which yeah, this is that's not very helpful. But you had talked about the different meanings of it, and one of them involved starlight somehow.
Uh,
I
you
don't
know,
think I'm making this up.
no, I'm sure you're not making it up. I just don't have a great memory. Um,
No. I know. Now we have to
oh
look at.
yeah. No, no, no.
I
I
don't.
was looking at that.
You're
You're
reading
right.
it
You're
off.
right. No, I've
There we go.
got you now. We were talking about the lexicon entry for
Okay.
Actus. Yes. And
Yes. Okay.
one of the meanings given in the LSJ in the Greek lexicon is a ray shot from the left by planet to planet, which seems peculiarly specific.
Hmm.
But this idea of a ray going from planet to planet, right? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, that is. That
Yes.
is. Thank you.
That stellar association.
Hmm. I'm just getting the spell right now. There we go. Yep. Offering to the star of Aphrodite. Oh, another. We're starting with another incense that's going to smell terrible and
Well, terrible.
doesn't end well for an animal. White dove's blood and fat, untreated myrrh, and parched wormwood. Oh gosh, why? I have questions about these people's incense making skills and why they have to involve poor animals in this. Uh, oh, good. We're throwing in brains of a vulture in there too. Yikes! Oh gosh, that's gonna smell terrible. But they do. I'm trying to find. Oh, there it is. Aktiophis areshkigan about to solas is the compulsion element of the rite, and I'm trying to get this person to fall in love with you. And it's interesting that it mentions a planet. I was thinking star of Aphrodite being as Venus, talking about the light of
Yeah.
planetary movement. So I thought that was an interesting maybe connection, but that was kind of it right there.
Yeah, but I do think the idea of rays
Oh
of starlight
gosh.
also applies to the, ray definition.
Hmm.
Um, it
Yeah.
tends to
Well,
be solar,
perfect.
but it also gets used of these other light sources.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that spell also that you mentioned had that compelling aspect, which the love spells generally do. They're terrible.
Yeah.
But this idea of using these names as a compulsion, as a compelling formula to get someone to do something,
Hmm.
again, seems to be part of the theme.
Definitely at least getting spiritual attention.
Yes. Yeah.
And that kind of moves into the magic that we can do with Aktiophis. And I don't know if I want to, we were talking about the three names together as this sort of charm, but Aktiophis on its own seems to have a very phosphorus kind of feel.
Mhm.
So revealing truth or trying to see situations that are difficult to see could be connected to work with Aktiophis. If you wanted to write her name in Greek on a candle and light it uh, to call upon a little bit of inspiration or illumination into one's path or what you're doing or trying to understand something. I have used the three names together to get the attention of spirits I was trying to there of aggressive spirits that I was trying to move out of a place. Uh, so it works. Or even just or if you were just getting the attention of somebody, especially if that spirit is being aggressive for whatever reason.
Yeah, it seems to work. It
What
seems
else
to
would
work really
you?
well. The three names together seem to work really well as a
Hmm.
sort of claim of authority. Like I said, they do seem to get Hecate's attention, but
Hmm.
they also seem to get the attention of all the spirits around you if you're trying to establish yourself as an authority, right? Like if you do have something troublesome that you want to behave, to call upon those three
Right.
names shows you to them as somebody who knows what they're doing, right? It's a sort of a appeal
Hmm.
to authority, and it tends to get their attention in that way. I think because it also it shows that you're an ally of Hecate. Um, of course, the more you actually work with Hecate, are an ally of Hecate, the more successful you'll be with that. But just as a sort of almost a protective formula, just to say, hey, don't mess with me. Listen to what I have to say. It seems to work
Hmm.
really well that way. As far as Aktiophis on her own, I think for finding things that are hidden, especially hidden knowledge, I feel like if you're,
Yeah.
trying to find some information that's just not clear, or trying to understand something that isn't clear, I think she's a really great help for that. Trying to perceive something that's hidden from you, which
This
can
is
also work.
very, this is really, I was just thinking about these names, relating them to land, sea, and sky. This is a very celestial kind of
Mhm.
name, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, trying to link Ereshkigal and About to Soleth to different realms of Hekate, but there is that connection there that
Oh yeah.
might bear fruit the more we get into it. Once we get some really good, I don't want to say anything until we get any really, and until we get better information on About to Soleth. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, there's that. Uh, so yeah, um, strong, just a little bit of authority to this, illumination, discovering knowledge or information. Um, a great way if you're trying to, it'd be interesting to try to use it in some healing work. I'm thinking
Hmm.
Helios specific magic, right? I would be working with Helios for health, for vitality, for success. And I wonder if Aktiophis just on its own is a really nice name to work if you're trying to work with both Hekate and Helios, if that's a really nice epithet to call upon in that kind of work.
Yeah, I could see that.
So that's a theory, not something I've played around with because used I haven't really used any one of these names separately from each other. That would be a really fun experiment to play around with, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. See how they work on their own. Because I mean they do
Yeah.
get used on their own, like that spell we were just referring to calls upon Aktiophis as a goddess in her own right. If it
Hmm.
is really being used as an epithet of Selene, then of course it's calling on the moon. But
Yeah.
it's like this weirdly solar moon, right? It's like, because the moon is reflected sunlight. So this idea of the light from the moon that really is sunlight, and that as an aspect of Selene, who is in the PGM at least conflated with Hecate all the time.
Yeah. So I think we've covered it. Is there
Yeah,
anything
I
else
think
that
we
you want
have.
to add to that?
Um, I think I just want to reiterate, if you're working with Hecate, that these three names are so powerful to just make a part of your everyday prayer, whatever daily practice you might be doing. I think these three names have a place in it if you really are serious about working with Hecate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, next episode, we're going to be tackling Ereshkigal, which will be fun.
That will be
And
fun.
if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can get a hold of us on Facebook or Instagram. We're there, and well, we look forward to the next episode and digging in a little more to some of these epithets. Until then, thanks for being here.